Why Smart People Stay Broke, published by MindForge Audiobooks. Introduction. You did everything right. You studied hard. You followed the system. You made the smart choices. And yet, you still feel stuck financially. Not broke because you're careless, but stuck despite being capable. This is the frustration no one talks about, because intelligence is supposed to lead to success. But here's the truth. Intelligence doesn't guarantee wealth. You can understand complex ideas, analyze deeply, think logically, and still struggle with money. Why? Because wealth is not just about what you know. It's about how you think and what you do with that thinking. There is a hidden gap, a gap between knowledge and results. You know what to do. You've read about it, you've thought about it, but you haven't moved. And that gap is where most smart people get stuck. They overthink. They analyze every risk. They wait for the perfect moment. They try to be certain before acting. But money doesn't reward perfect thinking. It rewards action. And while you're thinking, others are moving. While you're analyzing, others are learning through experience. This is the silent trap. Your intelligence becomes hesitation. Your logic becomes delay. Your awareness becomes inaction. And over time, that keeps you exactly where you are. In this audiobook, you're going to uncover why this happens, why smart people stay broke, why thinking alone isn't enough, and what it really takes to break out of this cycle so you can finally turn your intelligence into results. Chapter 1. Intelligence is not financial intelligence. You can be highly educated and still struggle with money. You can understand complex theories, solve difficult problems, and think critically, yet feel lost when it comes to building wealth. This is where most people get confused. They assume intelligence equals financial success, but it doesn't, because there's a difference between being educated and being financially aware. Education teaches you how to think in structured ways. It trains you to analyze, memorize, and perform within systems. You learn subjects, you pass exams, you follow instructions, and for most of your life this works. You're rewarded for getting the right answers, for following the path, for doing what's expected. But money doesn't work like that. There is no fixed syllabus, no guaranteed outcome, no clear right answer. Financial intelligence is not about memorizing information. It's about understanding how money flows, how value is created, and how decisions affect long-term outcomes. And most people are never taught this. Why? Because schools don't teach money thinking. They teach stability. They prepare you for jobs, for structured environments, for predictable income. You're taught how to earn, but not how to grow. You're told to work hard, but not how to make your money work for you. You learn how to be productive, but not how to build assets. So you leave school with knowledge, but without financial direction. And that creates a gap between what you know and what actually builds wealth. This is why many smart people struggle financially. They apply academic thinking to financial decisions. They look for certainty. They want clear outcomes. They analyze deeply. But money requires something different. It requires decision-making under uncertainty. It requires risk. It requires action. And that's uncomfortable because you've been trained to avoid mistakes, to be correct, to be certain. But in the real world, especially in money, you learn by doing, by trying, by adjusting, not by waiting for perfect understanding. This leads to another problem: confusing knowledge with wealth-building skills. You can read books about investing, watch videos about business, understand financial concepts. But that doesn't mean you're building wealth. because knowledge is passive. Wealth is built through action. You can know everything and still do nothing. And that's exactly what happens to many intelligent people. They keep learning, keep researching, keep preparing, but they don't execute because they feel like they don't know enough yet. This is the illusion, the belief that more knowledge will solve everything, that one more book, one more video, one more strategy will finally make them ready. But readiness doesn't come from knowledge. It comes from experience, from taking action, from making mistakes and learning from them. This is where the illusion of "I know enough" becomes dangerous, because it works both ways. Some people think they don't know enough, so they don't start. Others think they know enough, so they stop learning. Both are stuck, because financial growth requires both, learning and action, not one without the other. Smart people often get trapped in their own thinking. They believe that understanding something deeply means they're prepared, but understanding is not the same as execution. You can understand how a business works, but that doesn't mean you can build one. You can understand investing, but that doesn't mean you're investing. You can understand wealth, but that doesn't mean you have it. And this gap is where frustration grows, because you know what to do, but you're not doing it. You feel capable, but you're not progressing. And over time, this creates doubt. You start questioning yourself. Why am I not moving forward? Why am I still stuck? And the answer is simple, but hard to accept. Because thinking is not enough. Financial intelligence is different. It's not about knowing everything. It's about acting with what you know, making decisions, taking calculated risks, learning through experience, adjusting as you go. This is uncomfortable for intelligent people because they are used to certainty, to clarity, to being right. But in money, you won't always be right. You will make mistakes. You will lose sometimes. You will feel uncertain. And that's part of the process. The people who build wealth are not the ones who know the most. They are the ones who act despite uncertainty. They don't wait for perfect knowledge. They move with imperfect understanding. And that's what creates results. Another important shift is redefining what intelligence means. It's not just about how much you know. It's about how effectively you use what you know. Can you make decisions? Can you take action? Can you learn from outcomes? That is real intelligence in the financial world, because money rewards behavior, not just knowledge. So if you want to move forward, you need to change your approach. Stop treating money like a subject to study, and start treating it like a system to engage with. You don't need to know everything. You need to start. Learn while doing. Adjust while moving. Because clarity comes from experience, not from endless thinking. In the end, intelligence is not your limitation, but how you use it might be. If you stay in your head, you stay stuck. If you move into action, you grow. And that shift from knowing to doing is what turns intelligence into wealth. Chapter 2, Overthinking Kills. Financial Action. You think you're being careful. You tell yourself you're analyzing the situation. You're weighing the risks. You're making a smart decision. But what if you're not being careful? What if you're just not acting? This is the silent trap of overthinking. It feels intelligent. It feels responsible. But it quietly destroys financial progress. Because in the world of money, thinking without action leads nowhere. One of the most common patterns is analyzing instead of investing. You research endlessly. You read articles, watch videos, compare options. You try to understand every detail, every risk, every outcome. And the more you learn, the more complex it feels. Because now you see more possibilities, more uncertainty, more reasons to hesitate. So you keep analyzing. But you don't invest. And while you're thinking, time is moving, opportunities are passing, and nothing is changing. This is where intelligence becomes a barrier, because you can see too much, too many variables, too many risks, and instead of simplifying the decision, you delay it. But wealth is not built through perfect analysis. It's built through imperfect action. Another powerful trap is waiting for perfect timing. You tell yourself, I'll start when the market is right. I'll invest when I feel more confident. I'll begin when things are clearer. But perfect timing doesn't exist. The market is always changing. Conditions are never perfect, and clarity rarely comes before action. So you wait. And while you wait, nothing happens. This is how delay becomes a habit. You don't realize it at first. You think you're just being patient. But patience without action is not strategy. It's avoidance. And over time, that avoidance becomes costly, because wealth is built over time. And every moment you delay, you lose time. Time you can't recover. This is why early action matters. Not perfect action, but consistent action. Because even small steps taken early grow, but delayed steps don't. Another hidden factor is fear disguised as logic. This is the most dangerous one, because it doesn't look like fear. It looks like reasoning. You say, this investment is risky. I need to understand more. It's better to be safe. And on the surface, this sounds logical, but underneath it, there is fear. Fear of losing money, fear of making a mistake, fear of being wrong. And your brain doesn't present it as fear. It presents it as logic, because logic feels acceptable. It protects your identity. It allows you to avoid action without feeling like you're avoiding. This is how fear controls you, quietly, without you realizing it. You think you're making smart decisions, but you're actually avoiding discomfort, and that keeps you stuck. Because financial growth requires discomfort. It requires stepping into uncertainty. It requires making decisions without guarantees. And if you avoid that, you avoid growth. This leads to one of the biggest consequences: missed opportunities from hesitation. Opportunities don't wait. They appear, and then they pass. A good investment opportunity, a business idea, a chance to start something. These moments don't stay forever. They require action. And if you hesitate, you miss them. Not because you weren't capable, but because you weren't ready to act. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. Because missed opportunities don't always look like losses. You don't see what could have happened. You only see what didn't, and that creates a false sense of safety. You feel like you avoided risk, but in reality, you avoided growth. And over time, this creates a pattern. You think, you delay, you miss, you repeat, and years pass. With knowledge, with potential, but without results. This is why overthinking is so dangerous, because it doesn't stop you suddenly. It slows you down gradually, until you realize you haven't moved. Breaking this pattern requires a shift, not in intelligence, but in behavior. You need to move from analyzing to acting, from thinking to doing. This doesn't mean ignoring risk. It means managing it, taking calculated action, starting small, learning through experience. Because experience teaches faster than thinking. Another important step is setting decision limits. You don't need to think forever. Give yourself a time frame. I will research for this long, then decide. This forces action. It prevents endless loops. It trains your brain to move forward. You also need to accept imperfection. You will not make perfect decisions. You will not always be right. And that's okay, because progress is built through correction, not perfection. Each action teaches you something. Each mistake improves your understanding. And over time, you become better, more confident, more capable. But only if you act. Another powerful shift is reframing fear. Instead of seeing risk as something to avoid, see it as something to manage. Ask yourself, what is the downside? Can I handle it? What can I learn from this? This reduces fear, because you are not imagining the worst. You are evaluating reality. And most of the time the risk is manageable, but the opportunity is valuable. And that changes your perspective. Finally, build a bias toward action. Train yourself to move, even when unsure, even when it's not perfect, because action creates clarity, not the other way around. The more you act, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more confident you become. And the more confident you become, the less you overthink. In the end, overthinking is not intelligence. It is hesitation. And hesitation has a cost, not just in money, but in time, in growth, in opportunity. So stop waiting for perfect clarity. Stop analyzing endlessly and start moving. Because wealth is not built by those who think the most. It is built by those who act. Chapter 3. The Comfort Trap. Comfort feels safe, predictable, controlled, secure, and for most of your life you were trained to seek it, study hard, get a stable job, earn consistently, avoid risk. It sounds like the right path. It feels responsible. But here's the truth: most people never question. Comfort can quietly keep you stuck. This is the comfort trap. You choose stability over growth, not because you lack ambition, but because stability feels certain. A steady paycheck, a familiar routine, a predictable lifestyle. There is nothing wrong with these things until they become your limit, because growth rarely happens in comfort. It happens in uncertainty, in situations where outcomes are not guaranteed, where you are forced to learn, adapt, and evolve. But your brain resists that. It prefers what it knows. It prefers what feels safe. So, when you face a choice between comfort and growth, you often choose comfort, not consciously, but automatically. And over time, that choice shapes your life. You stay in the same job. You follow the same routine. You avoid opportunities that feel uncertain. And slowly, your potential remains unused. This is especially common among smart people because they understand risk. They can analyze it. They can see what could go wrong. And because they see it clearly, they avoid it. This leads to a powerful illusion. High-paying jobs but no wealth. You earn well. You have a good income. You are financially stable. But you are not financially free, because income is not wealth. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you build. And if all your money comes from your time, you are still trading hours for income, even if those hours are highly paid. This is the trap. You feel successful, you feel secure, but you are not progressing toward freedom, because your income depends on your effort, and your effort has limits. Time is limited, energy is limited, and as long as your income depends on them, your growth is capped. This is why many intelligent people stay in this cycle. They optimize their job, they increase their salary, they improve their skills, but they don't build assets. They don't create systems. They don't develop leverage, because those things require risk, and risk feels uncomfortable. This is where the real issue lies. Why smart people avoid risk. It's not because they don't understand it. It's because they understand it too well. They see the downside, the uncertainty, the possibility of failure, and their brain says, stay where it's safe. This is logical, but it is also limiting, because risk is not the enemy. Unmanaged risk is. And avoiding all risk means avoiding all growth. Every opportunity involves some level of uncertainty. Starting something new, investing money, trying a different path. There is no guarantee, and that's what makes it uncomfortable. But that discomfort is where growth lives. The problem is, comfort hides this truth. It convinces you that staying the same is the safest option. But staying the same has a cost, a hidden cost. You lose time. You lose opportunities. You lose potential growth. And over time, that cost becomes significant. This is why comfort is a silent enemy. It doesn't stop you aggressively. It slows you quietly. It keeps you in place while making you feel secure. You don't feel like you're failing. You feel like you're stable. And that's what makes it dangerous, because you don't realize you're stuck until years pass and nothing has changed. You're still in the same position, still thinking about doing more, still waiting for the right time. But that time never comes, because comfort keeps you from creating it. Breaking out of this trap requires awareness. You need to recognize where comfort is limiting you. Ask yourself, am I choosing this because it's right or because it's easy? Is this helping me grow or just keeping me safe? These questions reveal the truth. Another important shift is redefining risk. Risk is not something to avoid completely. It's something to manage intelligently. Instead of asking, how do I avoid risk? Ask, how do I take calculated risk? This changes your approach. You don't jump blindly, but you don't stay still either. You move with awareness. You take steps that challenge you, but don't destroy you. This is where growth begins. You also need to separate comfort from progress. Just because something feels comfortable doesn't mean it's beneficial, and just because something feels uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. In fact, discomfort is often a sign of growth. It means you are doing something new, something challenging, something that expands your ability. So instead of avoiding discomfort, learn to work with it, move through it. Because on the other side of discomfort is development. Another key step is building outside your comfort zone. You don't need to leave everything behind, but you need to start something, invest a small amount, start a side project, learn a new skill with application. These steps create exposure, they reduce fear, they build confidence, and over time, they expand your comfort zone. Because comfort is not fixed. It grows with you. If you push it, if you never challenge it, it stays small, and so does your life. In the end, the comfort trap is not obvious. It doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like safety. But safety without growth leads to stagnation, and stagnation leads to regret. So don't let comfort decide your future. Use it when needed. But don't depend on it, because everything you want, growth, wealth, freedom, exists outside of it. And the moment you step beyond comfort, you step into possibility. And that's where real change begins. Chapter 4. The fear of losing money. You don't just want to make money, you want to avoid losing it. And that one difference shapes almost every financial decision you make. Because losing money feels painful, not just logically, emotionally. That pain is stronger than the pleasure of gaining. This is called loss aversion. And it controls more of your behavior than you realize. If you gain $1,000, you feel good. But if you lose $1,000, you feel worse than that good feeling. Stronger, deeper, more intense. Your brain remembers it. It marks it as something to avoid. So the next time you face a financial decision, your brain prioritizes avoiding loss over creating gain. This is why you hesitate, why you overthink, why you stay on the safe side. Because your brain is not trying to make you rich. It's trying to protect you from pain, from regret, from feeling like you made a mistake. But here's the problem. If you focus only on avoiding loss, you also avoid growth. Because every opportunity comes with risk. Every investment, every business decision, every financial move. There is no path with zero risk, and if your goal is to eliminate risk completely, you will eliminate opportunity. This is why fear stops you from starting. Not loudly, but subtly. You don't say, "I'm afraid." You say, "I need to be careful. I'll wait for a better time. I don't want to lose money." And again, this sounds logical, but underneath it, there is fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of losing control, fear of regret. So instead of acting, you delay. You stay where things feel certain. But certainty comes at a cost, because while you are protecting what you have, you are not building anything new. This leads to a dangerous pattern, playing safe versus staying stuck. You think you are being responsible. You avoid risky decisions. You protect your savings. You choose stability. And in the short term, it works. You don't lose money. You don't face major setbacks. You stay comfortable. But in the long term, you don't grow. Your money doesn't multiply. Your financial position stays the same. And over time, safe becomes stagnant. You are not losing, but you are not winning either. This is the hidden danger, because staying safe feels like progress, but it's not. It's maintenance. And maintenance does not create wealth. Growth does. But growth requires risk, not reckless risk, but calculated risk. This is where you need a shift. You don't eliminate fear. You understand it. You work with it. Because fear is not always wrong. It's a signal. It tells you, this matters. This has consequences. But it doesn't mean don't act. It means be aware. So instead of avoiding fear, you learn to manage it. This begins with reframing risk. Most people see risk as something negative, something dangerous, something to avoid. But risk is also opportunity. It is the space where growth happens. The key is not avoiding risk. It is understanding it. Ask yourself, what is the actual downside? How much can I lose? Can I handle it? This brings clarity. Because your mind often exaggerates risk. It imagines the worst-case scenario. It makes it feel bigger than it is. But when you break it down, it becomes manageable. You realize the risk is not as extreme as it feels, and the opportunity may be worth it. Another powerful shift is this. Stop seeing loss as failure. See it as feedback. If you lose money, it doesn't mean you're incapable. It means you're learning. You're gaining experience. You're understanding what works and what doesn't. This is how real financial intelligence is built, not through perfect decisions, but through informed mistakes. Because each mistake teaches you something. It sharpens your judgment. It improves your decisions. And over time, it reduces your risk. This is what most people miss. They try to avoid losing at all costs, so they never learn. And because they never learn, they never grow. Another important step is starting small. You don't need to take big risks immediately. You can begin with controlled exposure. Invest a small amount. Try a small idea. Take a manageable step. This reduces fear, because the potential loss is limited, but the experience is valuable. And as you gain confidence, you can scale, gradually, intentionally. This is how you build comfort with risk, not by avoiding it, but by engaging with it safely. Over time, your mindset changes. You stop fearing loss. You start understanding it. You become more balanced, more rational, more confident. Because now you are not reacting emotionally. You are responding intelligently. In the end, the fear of losing money is natural. It's part of how your brain works. But if you let it control you, it will keep you stuck. It will keep you safe, but limited. So don't try to eliminate fear. Learn to move with it. Take calculated risks. Accept small losses as part of growth. And focus on long-term gains, not short-term comfort, because wealth is not built by avoiding every loss. It is built by making decisions despite it. And the moment you stop fearing loss is the moment you start creating real opportunity. Chapter 5. The Illusion of Being Busy. You feel busy. Your day is full. You wake up, work, respond, handle tasks, solve problems, and by the end of the day, you're exhausted. It feels like you're doing everything right. But then you look at your financial situation, and nothing has really changed. This is one of the most dangerous illusions. Being busy feels like progress, but busyness and wealth are not the same. You can be constantly active and still go nowhere financially, because activity is not the same as advancement. This is where the trap begins. Working hard but not building assets. You put in hours. You give your time. You complete tasks. You earn money. But what are you building? At the end of the day, your income depends on your effort. If you stop working, the income stops. This means you are not building assets. You are building income streams tied to your time, and time is limited. This is why hard work alone doesn't create wealth. Because wealth is built on assets, things that continue to generate value. Even when you're not actively working, investments, businesses, systems, these are assets. And if you're not building them, you're staying in the same cycle, working, earning, spending, repeating. This leads to the second trap, trading time for money. This is how most people earn. You give your time and you get paid. It feels fair. It feels stable, but it has a limit because you only have so many hours. You can work more, but only up to a point. You can increase your income, but it's still tied to your effort, and that means your growth is capped. This is why many people stay busy, but don't become wealthy. They are maximizing effort instead of multiplying results. Because true wealth is not built by trading time. It's built by creating leverage. Leverage means your effort creates more than one result. Your time produces multiple outcomes. One action leads to repeated value. But when you're trading time for money, there is no leverage. 1 hour, one result. And that keeps you stuck. Another major confusion is productivity versus wealth creation. You can be productive all day and still not build wealth. Because productivity is about doing tasks, wealth creation is about building systems. You can complete emails, attend meetings, finish projects, and feel accomplished. But if none of those activities build assets, they don't move you toward financial freedom. They just keep you in motion. This is the illusion. You feel productive, but you're not progressing financially because your effort is going into maintaining, not multiplying. This is why effort doesn't equal financial freedom. You can work harder, longer, smarter. But if your effort is not aligned with wealth creation, it won't change your financial position. Effort without direction is just exhaustion. And many smart people fall into this trap because they are good at working. They are disciplined. They are consistent. They show up every day, but they apply that effort in the wrong place. They optimize their job instead of building leverage. They increase their workload instead of increasing their impact. And over time, this leads to burnout. Because working more doesn't create more freedom. It creates more dependence on work. This is the paradox. The harder you work in the wrong system, the more stuck you become. You feel like you're doing everything right, but you're not moving forward. And that creates frustration because you're putting in the effort, but not seeing the results. Breaking this illusion requires a shift. You need to stop asking, how can I work more? And start asking, how can I build something that works for me? This changes everything. You move from effort to strategy, from activity to creation, from working to building. You start focusing on assets, things that grow over time, things that produce value continuously. This doesn't mean you stop working. It means you change how you work. You allocate time differently. You prioritize differently. You think long-term. Instead of spending all your energy on immediate tasks, you invest some of it into building systems. Even small steps matter. Learning about investing, starting a side project, creating something scalable. These are not instant results, but they create future value. And that's what wealth is. Future value built from present effort. Another important shift is measuring the right things. Don't just measure how busy you are. Measure what you're building. Ask yourself, is this creating long-term value? Will this still matter later? Is this moving me toward freedom? If the answer is no, then you're just staying busy. And busyness is comfortable. It gives you a sense of control, a sense of progress. But it can also hide stagnation because you're doing something, but not the right thing. You also need to become comfortable with a different kind of work. Work that doesn't give immediate results. Work that feels uncertain. Because building assets takes time. It doesn't give instant rewards. It requires patience, consistency, long-term thinking. And that's why most people avoid it. They prefer immediate results, immediate feedback, immediate income. But that keeps them in the same loop. In the end, the illusion of being busy is powerful because it feels like progress, but it's not. It's movement without direction, effort without growth. So if you want to break out of this, you need to shift your focus from doing more to building more, from working harder to working strategically, because financial freedom is not created by how busy you are. It's created by what you build. And the moment you stop confusing activity with progress is the moment you start moving forward. Chapter 6. Social conditioning about money. Before you ever earned your first dollar, you were already learning about money, not from books, not from experience, but from people, from what they said, from how they lived, from what they believed. And without realizing it, you absorbed it all. This is social conditioning, the silent programming of your mind. And when it comes to money, it runs deeper than you think. You've heard it before. Money is risky. Play safe. Get a stable job. Don't take chances. These phrases sound responsible. They sound wise, but they are not neutral. They shape how you think. They define what feels safe, and they limit what you believe is possible. Because once something is repeated enough, it becomes truth in your mind, even if it's not accurate. This is where the first layer of conditioning begins. You start associating money with fear, risk with danger, security with safety. So when you grow up and face financial decisions, your mind already has a bias. It pushes you towards safety, toward stability, toward what feels familiar, even if that path doesn't lead to growth. This is why many people choose jobs over opportunities, not because jobs are bad, but because they feel certain, predictable, controlled, and your brain prefers that because it was taught to. This brings us to family and cultural beliefs. Your family didn't just teach you how to behave, they taught you how to think about money. Maybe you grew up hearing, "We can't afford that." Money is hard to earn. Rich people are different. Or maybe you saw behavior, avoiding risk, sticking to safe paths, prioritizing security over growth. And even if no one explained it directly, you learned it because children don't question. They absorb. They observe patterns, and they adopt them. So by the time you're making your own decisions, you're not starting from zero. You're operating from inherited beliefs, beliefs that may not even be yours, but they feel like they are, because you've lived with them for so long. Culture reinforces this. Society rewards certain behaviors. Follow the system, get a job, be stable, avoid risk. And if you do that, you're seen as responsible, successful, smart. But if you step outside that, if you take risks, try something different, challenge the system, you're seen as uncertain, unstable, even reckless. So what do most people do? They follow the system, not because it guarantees success, but because it guarantees acceptance. And this is especially true for smart people, because they understand the system. They perform well in it. They get rewarded by it. So they trust it. They believe this is the right path. And they continue. School, job, promotion, stability. It feels logical. But here's the problem. The system is designed for stability, not wealth. It teaches you how to earn, not how to multiply. It rewards consistency, not leverage. And if you follow it without questioning, you stay within its limits. This is why many intelligent people stay stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they follow a path that was never designed for financial freedom. And because that path feels safe, they don't question it. This is the power of conditioning. It doesn't force you, it guides you, quietly, subtly, until it becomes your default. Breaking this requires awareness. You need to ask yourself, what do I believe about money? Where did these beliefs come from? Are they helping me or limiting me? This is not easy, because questioning your beliefs feels uncomfortable. It feels like challenging what you've always known. But that's where change begins, because not all beliefs are true. Some are outdated. Some are based on fear. Some were never meant for growth. Another important shift is separating safety from success. Safety keeps you stable. Success requires growth, and growth involves uncertainty. So if your goal is only safety, you will stay within limits. But if your goal is growth, you need to accept some level of risk, not reckless risk, but intentional, calculated risk. This is how you expand beyond conditioning. You don't reject everything you've learned. You refine it. You keep what helps. You release what limits. You also need to redefine what smart means. Being smart is not just following the system. It's understanding it and knowing when to step beyond it. It's thinking independently, making decisions based on awareness, not conditioning. Because real intelligence is not about fitting in. It's about seeing clearly and acting accordingly. Another powerful step is exposure. If you stay in the same environment, you reinforce the same beliefs. But when you expose yourself to different perspectives, different ways of thinking, different examples of success, your mindset expands. You start to see there are other ways. Different paths exist. I don't have to follow the same pattern. This creates possibility, and possibility creates action. Over time, your thinking changes. You become less controlled by inherited beliefs, more guided by conscious decisions. And this is where real financial growth begins, because now you are not reacting to what you were taught. You are choosing what you believe. In the end, social conditioning is powerful. It shapes your thoughts before you're even aware of them. It influences your decisions without you realizing it, but it is not permanent. You can question it. You can change it. You can move beyond it. And when you do, you stop living by default and start living by design. And that is the first step toward true financial freedom. Chapter 7. Lifestyle Inflation. You start earning more. At first, it feels like progress, a better salary, more income, more freedom. You tell yourself, now things will change. But somehow, they don't. Your income increases, but your savings don't. Your lifestyle improves, but your financial position stays the same. This is lifestyle inflation, and it's one of the most common reasons people stay stuck financially, because the moment you earn more, you start spending more, not intentionally, but automatically. You upgrade your lifestyle, a better phone, a better car, a better place, better experiences. It feels deserved. It feels like a reward for your hard work. And in moderation, that's fine. But when it becomes a pattern, it becomes a trap, because your expenses grow with your income. And that means your financial situation doesn't actually improve. You're just operating at a higher level with the same result. This is why many people are earning more but saving nothing. They're not poor, but they're not building wealth either, because every increase in income is matched by an increase in spending. So nothing accumulates, nothing grows, and over time this creates a cycle. You earn more, you spend more, you need more. Your lifestyle becomes dependent on your income, and that dependency keeps you working, because if your income stops, your lifestyle collapses. This is the hidden pressure. You don't just want to earn, you have to earn to maintain what you've built, and that reduces your freedom, because now your expenses control your choices. Another part of this trap is upgrading lifestyle instead of investments. When you get extra money, you have a choice: consume it or invest it. Most people choose consumption because it gives immediate satisfaction. You see the result instantly. You feel better instantly. But investments are different. They don't give immediate rewards. They require patience. They grow slowly. And that's why people avoid them, because the reward is delayed. But that delay is what creates wealth. Because when you invest, your money starts working for you. It grows. It compounds. It creates future value. But when you spend, it disappears. It gives temporary satisfaction, but no long-term benefit. And if most of your money goes into lifestyle, there's nothing left to build wealth. This leads to another illusion, the trap of looking successful. You look successful. You have nice things. You live comfortably. You present a certain image, and from the outside, it looks like you've made it. But appearances can be misleading, because success is not what you show. It's what you own. It's what you build. It's what continues to grow, even when you're not working. And many people sacrifice real wealth for the appearance of it. They spend to maintain an image, to feel successful, to be seen as successful. But that image has a cost, because every time you spend to impress, you delay your financial progress. You prioritize perception over reality. And over time, that keeps you stuck. This is why income growth doesn't mean wealth. You can earn more, but if your expenses grow at the same pace, nothing changes. Wealth is not about how much you earn, it's about how much you keep and how much you grow. If you earn $10,000 and spend $9,500, you're not building much. But if you earn $5,000 and invest $2,000, you're building something. Because wealth is built on accumulation, on growth, on compounding over time. And that only happens when you control your lifestyle. Not eliminate it, but manage it. The key is awareness. You need to recognize when lifestyle inflation is happening, when your spending is increasing without intention, when your upgrades are automatic, not strategic. Ask yourself, am I spending because I need this or because I can afford it? Is this improving my life or just my image? Is this helping me grow or just making me feel better temporarily? These questions create clarity. They help you pause. They help you choose. Another important shift is separating reward from progress. You don't need to reward yourself with spending every time you earn more. You can reward yourself with growth, with investment, with building something for your future. Because the biggest reward is not what you buy today. It's what you create for tomorrow. You also need to create a system, a structure for your money, where a portion goes to spending and a portion goes to building, automatically, consistently, so that every time your income increases, your investments increase too, not just your lifestyle. This creates balance. You enjoy your present while building your future. Over time, this changes everything because your money starts working, your assets grow, your dependence on income decreases, and that's where freedom begins. Not when you earn more, but when you need less, when your lifestyle is not controlling you, but supporting you. In the end, lifestyle inflation is subtle. It doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like success. But if you're not careful, it keeps you in the same place, earning more, spending more, needing more. So don't let your lifestyle grow faster than your wealth. Let your wealth grow first, then your lifestyle. Because true success is not about what you show, it's about what you build. And the moment you control your lifestyle is the moment you start creating real financial progress. Chapter 8. Emotional Spending and Hidden Habits. You don't always spend money because you need something. You spend because you feel something. Stress, boredom, sadness, excitement. And in those moments, buying feels like relief, like control, like reward. This is emotional spending. And it's one of the most silent ways money disappears. Because it doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like a solution. You had a long day. So you buy something. You feel low. So you scroll, click, purchase. You achieve something. So you reward yourself. Each time it feels justified, small, harmless. But over time, it becomes a pattern. And that pattern shapes your financial life. This is where buying to feel better becomes dangerous, because the feeling doesn't last. The moment you purchase, you feel a short boost, relief, excitement, satisfaction, but it fades quickly. And when it fades, the original feeling returns. So you repeat the cycle. Buy, feel better, feel normal, buy again. This is not about the item. It's about the emotion. And until you understand that, the pattern continues. This is where dopamine comes in. Dopamine is the chemical your brain releases when you anticipate a reward, not when you receive it, but when you expect it. So when you're about to buy something, your brain gets excited. You imagine the result, the feeling, the outcome, and that anticipation creates pleasure. This is why shopping feels good, even before you buy. And once you click buy, you get a spike, a moment of satisfaction, but then it drops, and your brain wants that feeling again. So it pushes you to repeat the behavior. This is how instant gratification controls your spending. You prioritize what feels good now over what benefits you later. You choose short-term pleasure over long-term growth. And because the purchases are small, you don't notice the impact immediately. But they add up, quietly, consistently. This leads to small habits that drain wealth, not one big mistake, but many small ones. Daily coffee, frequent online orders, subscriptions you don't use, impulse buys. Individually, they seem insignificant, but together they create a pattern, and patterns define outcomes. If your pattern is spending, your outcome is stagnation, because money that could be invested is being consumed. Money that could grow is disappearing. And the worst part is, you don't feel it immediately. There is no alarm, no warning, just slow, consistent leakage. This is why awareness is critical, because you cannot change what you don't see. You need to become aware of your daily financial leaks. Where is your money going? Not in theory, in reality. Track it, observe it, notice patterns. When do you spend the most? What triggers it? Is it stress, boredom, social influence? These are not random. They are emotional patterns. And once you identify them, you can interrupt them. Another important step is separating emotion from decision. Before you spend, pause. Ask yourself, why am I buying this? Do I need it, or do I feel something? Will this matter later? This creates space. Space between impulse and action. And in that space, you gain control. Because most emotional spending happens instantly, without thinking, without awareness. But when you pause, you shift from reaction to intention. Another powerful shift is replacing the habit. You don't just stop spending, you redirect the behavior. If you spend when stressed, find another way to release it. Walk, write, reflect. If you spend when bored, engage differently. Learn something, build something, focus on growth. Because the goal is not to remove the emotion, it's to change how you respond to it. You also need to understand the cost, not just the price, but the opportunity. Every dollar spent is a dollar not invested, and every dollar not invested is future growth lost. So when you spend, ask, what is this costing me long term? This changes your perspective, because now you're not just seeing the item, you're seeing the trade-off, and that creates awareness. Another key step is creating friction. Make spending slightly harder, delay purchases, avoid save and payment details. Give yourself time before buying, because impulse thrives on ease. The easier it is, the faster you act. But when you slow it down, you reduce impulsive behavior. Over time, this changes your habits. You become more intentional, more aware, more controlled. Your spending aligns with your goals, not your emotions. And that leads to growth, because now your money is not leaking. It is being directed toward what matters, toward what builds. In the end, emotional spending is not about money. It's about behavior, and behavior can be changed, but only with awareness, with intention, with discipline. Because wealth is not just built through big decisions. It's built through small daily choices. And the moment you take control of those small choices is the moment your financial life begins to change. Chapter 9. Lack of leverage. Thinking you've been told your whole life, work harder, put in more hours, be more productive, stay consistent, and for a long time that works. You study harder, you get better results, you work harder, you earn more. So you believe hard work, success. But when it comes to money, that equation breaks, because there is a limit to how hard you can work, a limit to your time, a limit to your energy, a limit to your output. And if your income depends only on your effort, your growth will always have a ceiling. This is the problem, working harder instead of smarter. Most people focus on increasing effort, more hours, more tasks, more work, but they don't increase impact. They don't ask, how can this effort create more than one result? Instead, they stay in a linear system, 1 hour, one result, one task, one outcome, and that keeps them stuck, because no matter how hard they work, they cannot break that limit. This is where leverage changes everything. Leverage means using something to multiply your output, so that one action creates multiple results, not once, but repeatedly. This is how wealth is built, not by doing more, but by creating systems that do more for you. The problem is, most people don't think this way. They don't think in systems. They think in tasks. They focus on what needs to be done, not what can be built. This leads to the next issue. No systems, no scalability. If your work depends on you, it doesn't scale. It cannot grow beyond your time. You can increase effort, but you cannot multiply results. This is why many people stay busy, but don't grow. They are working inside the system, not building one. A system works without constant input. It continues to produce results, even when you're not actively working. That's scalability. That's leverage. But building systems requires a different mindset. It requires thinking long-term, thinking beyond immediate results. And that's uncomfortable, because systems don't give instant rewards. They take time to build. They require patience. They require effort without immediate return. And that's why most people avoid them. They choose quick income over long-term growth. They choose immediate results over scalable systems. And that keeps them in the same loop. This is why understanding leverage is critical. There are three main forms of leverage: time, money, and skills. Time leverage is about using your time once and benefiting multiple times. For example, creating something that continues to generate value, instead of repeating the same work again and again. Money leverage is about using money to generate more money, investments, assets, opportunities where your money works, instead of just sitting. Skill leverage is about using your abilities to create value at scale. Instead of applying your skill to one person at a time, you apply it to many. These forms of leverage change how you operate. You stop thinking, how much can I do today? And start thinking, how can this create results beyond today? This shift is powerful because it removes the limit. Your growth is no longer tied to your effort. It is tied to your systems. This is why wealthy people multiply effort. They don't rely only on hard work. They use leverage. They build systems. They invest. They create structures that continue to produce results. So, instead of working more, they make their work work more. One decision leads to ongoing outcomes. One effort creates repeated value. This is the difference. It's not about working less. It's about working differently. Because without leverage, you are always starting from zero. Every day, every task, every effort. But with leverage, your past work continues to pay off. It compounds, it builds, it grows. And over time, this creates exponential results. While others are working linearly, you are growing exponentially. Breaking out of this requires a mindset shift. You need to stop focusing only on effort and start focusing on impact. Ask yourself, is this scalable? Will this create long-term value? Can this work without me? These questions guide your decisions. They move you from worker to builder. Another important step is starting small. You don't need to build massive systems immediately. You can begin with simple leverage. Learning how to invest, creating something that generates value, developing skills that scale. Each step builds awareness, builds understanding, builds momentum. Over time, this becomes your default thinking. You stop chasing more work. You start creating more value, and that changes everything, because now your income is not limited by your time. Your growth is not limited by your effort. Your results are not limited by your presence. You've removed the ceiling. In the end, lack of leverage thinking keeps people stuck, working harder, doing more, earning but not growing. But once you understand leverage, you see a different path, a path where effort multiplies, where systems grow, where results compound. And that is the path to real wealth. Because wealth is not built by how much you work. It's built by how much your work continues to produce. And the moment you shift from effort to leverage is the moment your financial life begins to change. Chapter 10. The shift that changes everything. Up to this point, you've seen the patterns, the overthinking, the fear, the comfort, the habits. You've seen why smart people stay stuck. But awareness alone is not enough. There has to be a shift, a deep internal shift, not just in what you do, but in how you think. Because your results are not random. They are a reflection of your mindset. And if your mindset doesn't change, nothing else will. This is where everything transforms. This is the shift that changes everything. From consumer creator mindset, most people live as consumers. They consume content, consume products, consume services. They spend, they react, they follow. And there is nothing wrong with consumption until it becomes your default. Because consumers spend money, creators generate value, and value creates income. This is the first shift. You stop asking, "What can I buy?" and start asking, "What can I create?" Not necessarily something big, but something useful, something valuable, something that solves a problem. Because money flows toward value, always. When you create value, you attract opportunity. When you only consume, you depend on income. This is why creators grow faster. They are not limited by what they earn. They expand by what they produce. And the more value you create, the more your income potential grows. This doesn't mean you stop consuming. It means you become intentional. You consume to learn, to improve, to build, not just to feel good. This shift alone changes your direction, from spending to generating, from reacting to building. From saving, investing mindset. Saving feels safe. It gives you control. It gives you security, and it's important. But saving alone does not create wealth, because saved money stays still. It doesn't grow significantly, and over time it loses value. So while saving protects you, it doesn't expand you. This is where the next shift happens. From saving to investing. Investing means your money works, it moves, it grows, it creates more value over time. And this is how wealth is built, not by holding, but by multiplying. This shift is not easy, because investing involves risk, uncertainty, possibility of loss, and your mind resists that. But once you understand it, you stop seeing investing as dangerous. You start seeing it as necessary, because the real risk is not investing. The real risk is staying in one place, letting time pass, without growth. This is how you move forward. You don't stop saving. You use saving as a foundation, and then you build on it. You allocate money toward growth, consistently, intentionally, because investing is not about timing. It's about time in the market. Time creates compounding, and compounding creates wealth. From fear, calculated action. Fear will always exist. You will feel it. Before decisions, before risks, before change, and that's normal. The problem is not fear. It's how you respond to it. Most people avoid it. They delay. They wait. They stay safe. But that keeps them stuck. This is where the shift happens. From fear to calculated action. You don't ignore fear. You understand it. You analyze the situation. You evaluate the risk, And then you act anyway. Because action reduces fear, not the other way around. The more you act, the more confident you become, the more experience you gain, the more control you feel. And over time, fear loses its power because now you are not reacting emotionally. You are responding intentionally. This is how growth happens, not by waiting for fear to disappear, but by moving with it. Building a long-term wealth identity. Everything you do comes back to identity, how you see yourself, what you believe about yourself, because your actions follow your identity. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with money, you act accordingly. If you see yourself as someone who builds wealth, you act differently. This is the final shift. You build a long-term wealth identity. You stop focusing only on outcomes and start focusing on who you are becoming: disciplined, intentional, consistent, strategic. These are not just actions. They are traits, and traits are built through repetition. Each time you invest, you become an investor. Each time you create value, you become a creator. Each time you take action despite fear, you become confident. And over time, this becomes your default. You no longer force yourself. You act naturally, because it's who you are. This is powerful, because identity drives behavior, and behavior drives results. So instead of chasing money, you build the person who creates it. And once that identity is strong, results follow, automatically. The compound effect of the shift. These shifts may seem simple, but together, they change everything. You stop consuming mindlessly and start creating value. You stop just saving and start investing. You stop avoiding fear and start acting with awareness. You stop chasing results and start building identity. And over time, these changes compound. Your thinking improves. Your decisions improve. Your actions improve, and your results follow. Not instantly, but consistently. Because real change is not dramatic. It is gradual, but it is powerful. Becoming financially different. At the end of this journey, you realize something important. Wealth is not about luck. It's not about intelligence alone. It's about thinking differently, acting differently, seeing money differently. Because most people stay in the same patterns. They think the same way, act the same way, make the same decisions, and get the same results. But when you shift, you separate yourself. You step outside the pattern. And once you do that, your path changes. Final thought. This is not about becoming rich overnight. It's about becoming someone who builds wealth over time, with awareness, with intention, with consistency. Because in the end, money is not the goal. Freedom is. And freedom is built through the way you think, act, and grow. So make the shift, and everything else will follow. Conclusion. You're not broke because you're not smart. You're stuck because of patterns. The way you think, the way you act, the way you respond to money. These patterns have been shaping your financial life, quietly, consistently, and often without your awareness. But now you see them, and that changes everything. Because awareness creates financial change. The moment you recognize what's holding you back, overthinking, fear, comfort, habits, you gain the power to change it. You stop operating on autopilot. You start making intentional decisions, and those decisions begin to shift your direction. Wealth doesn't start with money. It starts with how you think, how you see opportunities, how you handle risk, how you take action, because your mindset determines your behavior, and your behavior determines your results. So if you want different results, you need different thinking, not more effort, but better direction. And here's the most important truth. You can rewrite your financial future, not instantly, but gradually, through small, consistent changes, through better decisions, through intentional action. Because your past does not define you. Your patterns do. And patterns can change. So start now. Think differently. Act intentionally. Build consistently. Because the moment you change how you think about money is the moment your financial life begins to change. CTA, call to action. What's one money habit holding you back? Be honest and share it in the comments. Your answer might help someone else break the same pattern. If you know someone struggling financially, send this audiobook to them. It could shift their thinking. Subscribe to MindForge Audiobooks for more powerful mindset content. Next video, the psychology of money that nobody taught you. Being smart isn't enough. Thinking differently is what creates wealth.